I'll never forget the first time I met him, and he immediately offered that he would help me no matter what I needed, that he would have my back and he would support me as he had done for many years at other heads of school.
He was always a willing friend and a willing ear, but was always such a wise counselor, and was a great mentor to me, but even more so, just a dear friend.
Mr. Buford was one of the wisest men I've ever met in my life, and he was wise for many reasons. One, he was extremely well read. He was always reading and looking for the newest innovation or newest research about what was happening around us. But two, he was extremely thoughtful. He was never impulsive. He always was looking at how he could take what he'd learned and then apply it to help our community, our school, and our students. And so when Mr. Buford spoke, everyone listened.
He taught me like everything. I mean, you know, who I am is because of him.
I'm in the same boat a little bit. He taught me everything.
Jeff was slow to speak and quick to listen. Such a quiet wisdom, you know, and I loved, you know, seeing that and learning from him.
And every day I think about him. Every day as I'm making decisions, I think, what would Mr. Buford think about this? And even though I can't call him now, I can still rely on that knowledge that I know he would impart on me. I can think, okay, what would he say in this situation? And I can still use that wisdom even though I don't have the same tap into it that I used to. Very few people in this world get to have someone that is literally in front of you that you can actually say, I want to follow, I want to be like this person, and we all have that benefit. And I hope that we won't ever lose that we'll continue to ask ourselves, how can I be more like him, and to learn from that example.
You know, even though Jeff was so intent on academic excellence, and for this being the best college preparatory school in East Texas, that was his goal, he still so important to him that we not lose focus on Christ.
That's the one thing that can't be shaken with him. I know that Jeff knew, that Dad knew beyond a shadow of a doubt where he was going when he left this world more than any other person I've ever encountered in my life.
He really did honor God, Jesus Christ, and country, and he wanted to help somebody have a better life. He never did want to just build another business and another business. He didn't want to see how high he could stack his income. He wanted to see how broad he could scatter it. But in doing that, to repay to what he thought God was pleased with was to make a life better for so many less fortunate people.
It's probably impossible to think of All Saints without Jeff Buford. But I know Jeff would want to say that God had his hand in this. And if it wasn't Jeff, God would have made this happen. And that's what Jeff would want people to believe. But for those of us who worked with him, he was the hand of God for many of us here.
I remember the day he passed. One of the first things out of my mouth is, my daddy's with Jesus now. I know for a fact that he knew where he was going.
Jeff was always generous, but also very, very unassuming. He was the epitome of the humble servant leader, and it would be hard to find those three qualities at any level more humble than he was humble, a bigger servant than he was a servant, and he always led with his heart.
You know, there's several things I learned from Jeff and being his friend. And, you know, one was, I told you, was just his generosity, and in that I got to see his generosity through his actions, not just through his words.
He was always loving and kind and generous, and he was that way with everybody.
It wasn't just the checks he wrote, and I know he thinks nobody knew he gave money, but you know, everybody knew Jeff was the one writing the checks, you know, the big checks.
My dad, he was real big on doing all his giving anonymously. He loved talking about the spirit versus the ego, you know. and how those two like opposing factors pretty much motivated everything that we do. And he always wanted to make sure that everything he was doing was for the spirit and not for the ego. And it's like, even though he was doing it anonymously, like he was the most famous anonymous donor in Tyler. Like everyone knew it was him, but you know, they humored him, you know, so he would know for himself that he was doing everything for the right reasons.
The reason he didn't want his name on anything while he was alive was not because he didn't see the value in that. Matter of fact, many times he was in meetings with me where we would tell other people, you need to put your name on this. It helps us help them understand how we get money for the school. But for him, it was about that he never wanted his ego to be driven by that giving. And so that was something that he really stayed true to. And I was always inspired by that he never wavered from that from the very first time I met him until the last time he gave a major gift and helped us. He was always true to himself.
He didn't see the money that he had as his. To him, it was the Lord's, and he was just taking care of it. And so that's why he was always so big about philanthropy. He always wanted to, you know, basically give as much as he kept. And so whether it was All Saints or the Children's Park or the hospital or all these different things, whether it was his time or his money, you know, he wanted to give as much as he could because he had been blessed with so much.
The thing that he taught me that sticks with me more than anything else is that what we have is not ours. We are conduits. We are here to be stewards, and we're here to take what has been entrusted to us and give it generously wherever there's a need.
That's called extravagant generosity.
I think in terms of his legacy, the thing that was important to him was leaving the world a better place than he found it. And, you know, he would want people to remember that. Not necessarily that that's what he did, but that example that, you know, that's all any of us can really try and do.
There are so many cool corollaries between who we are as a school and what he believed in deeply in his own life. And that we knew that what he was saying about igniting passions was what we all wanted to do for our students, for our colleagues every day, but also that this idea about that impacting the world was truly where that came from. He said many, many times that if we just taught kids knowledge and they became smart, but they didn't do anything to benefit the world with it, then we had done nothing. But that by truly teaching students to be intelligent and to be well thinking, but then to be action oriented, that's truly how we'd impact the world.
Jeff always said, we are creating champions through excellence in education. Creating champions that will be our leaders in America for the future. And that was his dream. And he watched that dream happen before he passed away. He left a great legacy.
And the thing that he would love most is that some of our students may not ever call him by name in the future when they talk about how they were prepared for life or how they are now able to be a well-adjusted adult leading the world. But everything they say will be the values and the heritage that he left behind. And so truly the students are his legacy forever.
One of the more serious conversations Jeff and I had in the last few years was about All Saints, and he just said this is one of the legacies that I want to leave is that I want All Saints to be the premier educational institution in East Texas, and I believe he achieved it.
I believe that I can say without a doubt that All Saints would not be what it is today but for Jeff Buford. And I can also say that I would not be the person I am today but for Jeff Buford.
You know, you don't have to change the whole world. You know, for him it was more about just improving the community that he was a part of. And I think that meant a lot to him, and that's what he was trying to do, and in a lot of ways I think he definitely did that. And that's, I think, what he would want people to remember is just make the world around you better than you found it.